Morning students, welcome you to this class. To the students of standard 9, I welcome you to this class. We have been studying about civics chapter number 3, democratic politics. In the previous class I have told you about the features of democratic election, what makes an election democratic. I have told you that democratic election is based on one person, one vote and one value. Second, I have told you that a democratic election is based on the universal adult franchise, and a democratic election is free and fair. So these were the features of a democratic elections. Today we are going to speak about what makes an election in India democratic, or what makes election in India democratic. Students, the election system in India is not without allegation. People put allegation on the election system of India, saying that the election system of in India is not free and fair, especially the problem of rigging. People also says that the people win election by using their muscle and money power. But can we say that the election in India are not fair and free? How do we examine that and we prove that the election in India is truly democratic? So let us see some of the points which which makes prove that the election system in India is truly democratic. First of all, we are going to see that who conducts the election in India. So first point is that independent election commissions. The election is conducted in India by an independent body which is known as election commission. So all the work of elections, starting from the declaration of election till the counting of votes and declaration of result, this all the work of election, the controlling elections is done by Election Commission of India. Now let me introduce about the Election Commission. EC or Election Commission is an independent body like the judiciary of India. We know that judiciary of India is the third organ of the government, but the judiciary is totally independent from the government control. Government cannot control the judiciary, the decision of the judiciary, the working of the judiciary. So also EC is an independent body who is not under the control of the government. The decision of the election commission, the working of the election commission is totally free from the interference of the government. That's why we call EC as an independent body. It is free from government interference, means government cannot interfere into the working of the election commission, into the decision of the election commission. Okay, Chief Election Commission is the head of Election Commission, Chief Election Commissioner. He is appointed by the President of India. Now, the head of the Election Commission, known as the Chief Election Commission, he is directly appointed by the President of India. But the interesting thing is that though he is appointed by the President of India, but he is not answerable to the President of the government. The government cannot remove him even if he is found not working properly. So this election commissioner, the chief election commissioner, is appointed by the President of India but not answerable to the President and the government. So we see that this independent election commission is not under the control. Now what is the problem if it is under the control of the government? If it is under the control of the government, definitely government, the sitting party, the ruling party, the government who is in power definitely will try to bring the result in their favor. So there will be most of the chances to win the ruling party by controlling the election commission. But here we see that election commission is free from the control of the government, and therefore there is no chance that ruling party can influence the election commission and bring the election result in their favor. I hope you understand. Next is we see the power of election commission. We have seen the working of the election commission, the power of election commission. What are the work of the election commission? What are the power of the election commission? Number one, to take decision to conduct and control election. It is the totally power of the now. Before that, who gives this power to the election commission? So students, you must know that these powers of the election commission are given by the Constitution of India. So the Constitution of India gives certain powers to election commission to work independently. So the first power of election commission is to take decision regarding the conduct and control of election. Election decisions, the date of the elections, the announcement of the elections, date of election, date of giving votes, date of counting of votes, and declaration of these, all decisions are taken by the election commission and control. Now, starting of the election, from the day of declaration of election till the end of the counting of votes, the election commission takes control of all the activities. So it is under the control of the election commission. Number two, to implement code of conduct. Second thing is, election commission makes the rule and regulations, the laws for the elections. Now there are certain laws we have seen in the books. There are certain laws, certain rule and regulation which all the political parties, all the candidate has to follow during the time of elections. So those rules and regulations, those laws are made by the election commission. If the political parties or candidates break those laws, they do not follow those laws during the time of election, the election commission has to ban those political parties or candidates from conducting the election. So these are the power of the election commission. Thirdly, to use government officials for election duty. Election commission has also power to use certain government officers to use for election duty. So during this time, election commission has power to control those government officers and use them for their work, election work. They can change their place of duties and use them for their own work. So you see, during the time of this election duty, these government officers are not under the control of government, but they are under the control of the election commission. So these are the power of the election commission. First, to take the decisions, to conduct and control the election, make the laws, rule and regulation for the election. Number two, use government officer for their election duty. And fourth, to control those government officers during the time of election. During the time of election, those government officers which are working for election duty, they are not under the control of government, but they are under the control of the election commission. So these are the power of the election commission. So the working of the election commission proves that the election in India is democratic. Second thing, popular participation. The participation of the voters in India proves that election in India is really democratic. Now, how does it prove? See, the participation of voters in election has been always found that it is constant. It is constant, even it has increased. The number of voters, okay, the number of voters in election, those who take part in election, the voters, those who take part in election, those who give the votes, their number is always constant, or even it is seen that in the recent years it has increased, and therefore it also proves that the election in India is democratic. If the election in India is not democratic, if the people with the money and muscle power win the election, if the peoples do not find that their expectations are met, definitely people will not have such an interest to take part in the votes. But we see that the number of voters in India has increased than the Western democracies like USA. So this also proves that really the election in India is held democratically. It is not won by the money and muscle power. Next we see the acceptance of election results. Third number is acceptance of election results. Now, how does this prove that election in India is a democratic? Now, first of all, we see the if election in India were not free and fair, then what would happen? Then we would not see these things. If it is not free and fair, if only the people with the money and muscle power win the election, then we do not see these things. But we always see in election these things, which also proves that really the election in India is democratic. Number one, only rich and powerful would win. If election in India is not free and fair and people win with the money and muscle power, then definitely only rich and powerful people would win in election. But that we do not see in India. This is not seen. Second thing, most of the time ruling party lost election. We also see in India that in election, most of the time the ruling party, those who are in the government ruling, they most of the time have lost the election. This also proves that election in India is democratic and the ruling party is not able to influence the election commission and bring result in their favor, because most of the time ruling party have lost the election. Third number, about half of the sitting MPs and MLAs lose election. This also proves that if the MPs and MLAs those are in power, if they could influence the election, if they could do the unfair practices, definitely they would win the election. But most of the time it is seen that about half of the sitting MP and MLAs have lost their elections. And then finally we see the candidates who use money and muscle power have often lose election. So this also proves that those people who use money and muscle power, most of the time they have lost the election. So this also proves that the election in India is democratic. It is not won by the money and muscle power, and it is not won by the rigging. So finally, we are coming to the challenges to free and fair election. We know that there are some unfair practices, some challenges to free and fair election in India. So what are those problems of election in India? Okay, first of all, use of money and muscle power. We know that in India, though they do not win the elections, but still use of money and muscle power is there, and this makes the problem for the small people, the smaller parties and the individual candidates. Okay, so that is the problem for them, but still the use of money and muscle power is not successful, but this is there in India. Number two, candidates with criminal backgrounds. Most of the time we see that candidates with a criminal background, they enter into politics. They get the tickets by using their money and muscle power, and then they stand in the election. Third number, dominating political parties by some families. Family lineage. We have been seeing that from a long period of time, some families are dominating the political parties. So domination of some families on the political parties. Fourth number, political parties come up with a similar policy and practices. This is one more problem, that though we have many political parties, a number of political parties, but still people do not have a proper choice. People do not get a proper choice means almost all the political parties come up with the same policies, same practices. Therefore, the people of India do not find the proper choice to select the best party. And then finally, smaller political parties and independent candidates cannot stand in competition against the bigger parties. So the independent candidates, the smaller parties, those who really want to come up and do something for the country, they cannot stand in competition with the resources of the big parties, the power, the resources, the money of the bigger parties, and therefore they have to be away from the elections, or they cannot win the election. So these are the unfair practices, or we can say the challenges to free and fair practices, which we have to control, which we have to remove from our country, so that our country may be really a true democratic and election may be more democratic and come up as per the expectations of the people. So students, I hope you understood. These are the things for this from this chapter, and this is the end of this chapter. I hope you understood the electoral politics. Try to read your books, try to follow the classes which I have taught you in these videos, and that's all for today. Thank you very much.